A common question that I come across quite often is essentially this: What are some common challenges in prompt engineering for large engineering for LLMs? So prompt engineering is has becoming less of an art and less of an gets in check to becoming more of a actual legible legible technique. People have been posting job postings saying that, hey, we want prompt engineers, we want prompt engineers. But we can break down prompt engineering in a couple different manner. But let's initially just talk about the common challenges. So from what my experience, what I've seen with prompt engineering and the challenge that I've faced is main thing is hallucination. Hallucination. I've seen just not knowing when a prompt works, when a prompt doesn't. So just lack of, I guess, robustness, lack of clarity, okay, lack of clarity. And I've also seen a certain, I guess, lack of a better word, just memorization. So I guess in a way, overfitting based on the prompt. So I guess let's dive a bit deeper into these topics and quickly discuss them. So let's just initially start with hallucinating. Let's just copy this, paste this a bit bigger. Okay, so hallucination is essentially, let's say you're given X, Y, Z, you're told X, Y, Z to someone, and then, so let's say if you're talking to someone younger than you, or let's say I'm talking to my brother and I tell him, hey, X, Y, Z, that's it, that's all you know, that's all you're capable of knowing, and that's all you should tell me when I ask you, what do you know? And it'll start hallucinating, and we'll know it starts hallucinating when it starts saying, actually, there's A, B, C, D before X, Y, Z. So it's basically adding information on top of the information that I've told that I've said. This is all you know. Where is this getting this additional information? We don't know. This is essentially means it's just going off the rails. It's just doing its own thing, and that's partly how large language models, in a way work, right? We give it some stuff, and then based on probability, it's able to spit out other stuff. So, for example, it could be that when we're passing in this information, the probability of it responding with something that we haven't given is a lot higher because this has triggered something in the weights that has forced it to point to something else. Now, how do we exactly figure this out? That why it's hallucinating and how to prevent it and how to make sure it stays aligned? Well, that's a field of research that we have that has gone going and is still to figure out. So there's a couple of ways we can, I guess, prevent hallucination is not to provide it too many information, not to basically test. So I think one way that I've seen it work quite well is uh, not to test the context size. So if a context size is, let's say, 180,000 tokens, try to stay below 180. Let's say at least below 100 because once you get 180, it starts to start going off the rails. I've seen it start going off rails. So not do this essentially. I guess this should be in red. Not test the context size. Let's try to keep it low. Try to keep it minimal. Another is not to be vague in doing prompt engineering. So if we go to do not be vague. So if, for example, you're asking your large language model to say act as a customer service agent, and you want it to have a very polite, very succinct, very comforting manner in their tone, make sure you make that very clear, and not say just be nice. Nice could mean anything. Nice could mean, oh, if someone's trying to dispute a bill, you essentially just say, oh, your bill has been disputed. You get the entire show. That is also being nice. So we do not want to be vague. So I guess in terms of vagueness, the one way we could combat that is using one or few shot learning. One or few shot learning is essentially in the prompts. In the prompt, you give it a sample response, sample interaction. So Why is this bill higher? You give it a sample response of how it is being, how you should nicely respond to it, and then go on. So that should be one example. But if you do keep it a couple, that'll basically call it future example. So I think these are two ways we can kind of sort of prevent hallucination. So next would be lack of clarity. So lack of clarity is kind of fun because you can have prompt one, prompt two, prompt three, and then let's say you're using prompt one for a week, it does really good job. But the next week when you're using prompt one, it does really bad. So then you're like, okay, let me tweak this prompt and let's go to prompt two. Really bad, but then starts doing really good. Starts doing really good, and then it does really good throughout. And then you're like, okay, oh, I wrote this new paper on few-shot learning. That should be really good. So then let's say we tweak prompt two, and then now it's doing really good, but then it starts failing. So now, how do you make sure which of this prompt is the best? Because let's say the change from here to here is not that drastic, but the change from here to here is drastic, but then you're not getting that much of a better response. So what do you usually do? So I guess I really haven't found a perfect way to respond to this, but what I've seen useful is stick with a simple prompt. So one solution for this would be stick with a very simple and clear story. So let's say coming back to customer service agent. If it's a customer service agent, what are its capabilities? You define them in the system prompt, give it an example, and you constantly just tweak that example. You constantly tweak that tone or the story of the customer agent instead of adding more things to it. So with a very simple and clear story. So I think that helped, and then setting up some sort of framework to test these prompts over time if you're trying to go into production. So you could have essentially a set of labeled data set where you constantly go back and forth, where you constantly test these new prompts, and then you can update the prompt as you see one doing really good over a frame of time. And the last one would be overfitting based on the prompt. So overfitting based on the prompt, it just takes combination of hallucination and a bit of this, where essentially you start testing the context size. So, example, if you are trying to use something called few-shot learning, and then your prompt gets very big with very detailed, a lot of very specific details. So, let's say customer service agent again, and then you give an example of when user essentially asks, why is my bill so high? And so now your one-shot example is answering this question, saying it because you have 1,000 new calls. And you know that it's just an example. You don't want the large language model to respond with this because your large language model already has data for that account to be able to answer this. But since in the prompt it has this specific number, it may just respond to this. So how to combat that? So what I've seen is maybe put additional. So after you put the examples, after you put the examples, you make it very clear that these are examples. These are examples or templates. I've seen the word temp have pretty good success in my day-to-day. These are templates that you should follow when responding with a response. So this is the format you should be following. You should have, and then breaking down the answer, you should be like, and then breaking down the answer as in like your response should have a number followed by an explanation. Instead of giving the number, you provide a template for the large language model to follow. So essentially, in a nutshell, when doing prompt engineering, it's a lot of guess and check. And while doing this guess and check, it can lead to a lot of frustration because of these specific problems, which are hallucinations, lack of clarity, and just memorizing the prompt. And I think the best way to look at prompt engineering would essentially be, let's say, if you're talking to someone that's younger than you, and you're trying to instruct them on a set of instructions. You're trying to tell them, let's say if you're trying to tell them how to build a birdhouse, and what is the best way for you to tell them the birdhouse. And of course, every other person's different. So the way you tell, I guess the way I would tell my brother on how to build a birdhouse might be different than a peer of his. That's when something like a framework of some sort where you can like constantly test your prompts can be really useful. And the struggle of hallucination or alignment is an ongoing one, and which we hope to fight soon. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.